I know you've been looking for an intellectual slasher film. Well, look no further than Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. Welcome back to Glenn Hates Everything. I'm Glenn, and people tell me that I hate everything, and this channel is here to prove them wrong. I don't. In fact, there are lots of movies that I love, including today's film, Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. That is a mouthful. This is the third feature from Jane Schoenbrunn. I have not seen their first one, which is called We're All Going to the World's Fair. But I saw the TV Glow, and that came quite heralded to me. And I didn't love it. I thought, here's a filmmaker who's got a very specific style, which I admire, a very David Lynchian relationship with sort of an alternate reality, a dream state, as it were. And I just thought that the movie got in its own way, that Schoenbrunn is clearly a studied intellectual whose knowledge of story and film and of such topics as gender identity got in the way of a thrilling story. I was a little bored by that film, to be honest with you, even though I found it intellectually interesting. Well, Schoenbrunn is a very smart filmmaker and recognizes that and has made an incredibly meta third feature film here that says, I know you think that I over-intellectualize my stories, so I'm going to give you a very smart film that also satisfies in the slasher genre as well. And I found this to be quite brilliant because it's also goofily entertaining. It's really funny. And that's something that I felt I saw the TV Glow sorely lacked, a sense of humor. And this one has it all over the place. It just made me smile the whole time. So what is it about? So this film stars Hannah Einbinder as Chris, who is a fledgling writer-director who's kind of a Sundance sensation who gets hired by the big studio to reboot a long-dormant slasher franchise, kind of in the vein of Friday the 13th. Camp Miasma is the series, and in a fantastic opening title sequence, we get the whole story there behind how the first film was the best one. It starred Billy Preston, as played as an adult by Gillian Anderson, who is phenomenal. And as a young Billy, we get Amanda Fix, who is a perfect match for Anderson's character. They both go together really well, and you see that quite a bit in the film. So that story of how the first film was better and then it kept on getting remade or sequelized to diminishing returns, and now she's being asked to reboot this franchise, kind of apologize for its earlier transphobic storylines, much like the film Sleepaway Camp. This is kind of a mashup of Sleepaway Camp and Friday the 13th, as it were, with a little bit of Carrie thrown in there. And so she decides, Chris, that she's going to travel to meet with Billy Preston to get her blessing on this film and maybe attach her to star in the film. And so she travels and realizes, because she's got really funky Google Maps directions, that Billy is living at the place where they shot Camp Miasma. So it's this kind of abandoned sleepaway camp that she's living in. She has been a recluse. She's been retired pretty much since that first film. And so she's just kind of living quietly there with a turban on her head, very much like Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard. And so she goes to meet with her to win her over. And the crux of the film is that push-pull between the two women. There is certainly attraction. There is a lot of interviewing back and forth to try to figure each other out. And it's just wonderful. The chemistry between Einbinder and Anderson is electric. It's really fun. Gillian Anderson puts on this Norma Desmond character, and she's got like a southern fried voice, kind of like Dolly Parton, if I'm being honest. And it's really fun because she talks very slowly. You know, she is this southern gothic queen, and yet she wants to cook dinner for Chris, but she doesn't have the food, so she goes out and gets KFC, and that leads to a discussion about dipping sauce that is loaded with sexual tension and is so funny. Sarah Sherman plays Chris's agent, and this is a very funny role for Sarah Sherman because all she wants is to make money. She doesn't care. She doesn't have time to listen to her client, that she dubs her client on her phone, actually, which is really funny. She just wants to play pickleball and make money. So there is this character, much like in any of these slasher films, who's recurring, the killer, called Little Death in this film, played by, I Saw the TV Glow's Jack Haven. It's a wonderful character who has this kind of air vent of a head and, this big spear that you see coming out of the water and goes and slashes up their victims. And it's a bravura sequence about halfway through the film where it's kind of a single take slasher moment where you just see the brutal killings one after the other. It's incredible. And that's when I realized this movie has really come together because it's really smart. It's a meta movie about making a movie, about what that takes, about what slasher films make you feel, and how that visceral feeling of them is what's important. That the intellectualization of them is not quite as important as just how they make you feel. Do you feel a part of these films? Which I do when I see a horror or a slasher film. It brings me in. The good ones bring me in. And this one does double duty of bringing me in my mind and bringing me in just in a gut level, visceral, bloody, crazy way. So it's a film that has it both ways. It's a sensational cast in addition to who I've mentioned so far. Eva Victor of Sorry Baby, almost unrecognizable as this DJ character in the slasher film within a film that takes a lot of screen time, and it's fascinating how it takes over the movie, and yet you don't lose the narrative drive of the main story. It's really interesting. A local sheriff is played by Kids in the Hall's Kevin McDonald. Very funny, because this is a character who has had roles in the prior Camp Miasma films, and so it's a very funny meta role as well. Same goes for Patrick Fischler, who plays a proprietor of the local store down in the town, who's just got words of warning in the most ominous ways. Dylan Baker has a hilarious cameo as a studio head who's listening to Chris's crazy pitch for the Miasma series and is not having it. He wants butts and seats. He does not want this heady film that Chris is pitching. It's a fantastic Zoom meeting scene that I really loved. A lot of credit goes to Eric Yui, who's the DP, also did I Saw the TV Glow. It's just one great shot after another, really memorable and beautifully put together, very dreamy, very David Lynch, and yet above all that is crackling dialogue, really fun, really funny. I knew I was sold on this movie the second it started. There's a cover version of one of my favorite songs by REM called Night Swimming. And I went, movie, I love you. I love being in you already. And so this is, to me, Jane Schoenbrum's calling card as a major filmmaker with something to say about a lot of things, about movies, about gender identity, about perception of self, about the frisson of a budding relationship and how that makes you feel. And Gillian Anderson's character says it the best, that these movies are really just about flesh and fluids. And this film doesn't forget that. There's so much flesh and fluids in this film. And so it gives the genre lovers the kick that it needs while also satisfying those who like to sort of pick apart the genre. So brilliant film. Brilliant film. I really, really enjoyed this. It just from beginning to end, it takes you on such a fun journey. These are award-worthy performances from Einbinder and Anderson. Really terrific. They're like my favorite new screen couple. They just light up the screen. They're really fun to watch. Einbinder plays vulnerability so well. We saw her do that on Hacks, and she really knows how to fill in the spaces of her character with this awkwardness, yet this bewildering confidence at the same time. It's beautiful to watch. And Anderson just feel so dialed into this character. You know her. You know that she's playing with Einbinder most of the time, and yet still believes in what she has to say, while putting on this really seductive facade. Wow, those are some $5 words. Anyhow, I highly encourage you go out and see it and engage in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Again, there are far too many of you watching these videos than are subscribing, so I want to turn that around. I'm on the road to 50 subscribers. I'm kidding. I have more than that, but not much more. So until next time, see you later.